Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm Tom Booker, Senior Instructor, and this is our Warrior Personal Strength lesson for this week. And we are talking together about courtesy as a personal strength. And in this lesson, we'll talk about how George begins to learn about courtesy. George's father, Augustine, died suddenly when George had just turned 11, and so he was having to take on more responsibilities on his mother's farms. Virginia had few schools or teachers at the time, the 1740s, so George was also taking more responsibility for his own education. His older brother Lawrence, who had gone away to the Appleby school in England, helped guide George as well. George looked up to his older brother and wanted to be like him. Lawrence was well educated, courteous, and respected by others. George wrote down a list of rules of civility and decent behavior in his diary as a guide for himself. There were 110 of them. He didn't make them completely up. They came from a book by Francis Hawkins, written nearly 100 years before. George changed the wording of many of them, making them shorter and easier to remember. These rules of civility and decent behavior were about more than just having good manners and being polite, important as that was. They guided George in learning and practicing respect for others and respect for himself as well. We're not going to try to go over all 110 of George's rules today, but we will talk about a few of them. Keep in mind that George wrote these in the 1740s, almost 300 years ago now, so that they may sound a little strange to us at first. The English language has changed quite a bit over that time. We'll do our best to talk about what they mean in terms that make sense to us in the here and now. George started this way. Every action done in company ought to be done with some sign of respect for those who are present. Whenever we're with others, we should always treat them with respect and consideration, whatever we are doing together. Rule 44 was, when a man does all he can, though it succeeds not well, blame not him that did it. The way we would put this now, when someone has made their best effort to do something and they're not able to succeed at it, don't criticize them for failing. Don't tell them they're a loser. Rule 65. Speak not injurious words, neither in jest nor in earnest. Scoff at none, although they give occasion. Now we would put this, don't say hurtful things about other people, not even as a joke. Don't speak to or about them with contempt, even if they've behaved poorly. Rules 50 and 89 are related to each other. Be not hasty to believe flying reports to the disparagement of any, and speak not evil of the absent, for it is unjust. What this means is we shouldn't say negative, hurtful things about someone behind their back. It isn't fair to them. Don't be quick to listen to or believe negative gossip and hurtful rumors about others. People will sometimes lie about others behind their backs to hurt them. Rule 109. Let your recreations be manful, not sinful. When doing something for fun, make sure it's something to be proud of, not something to be ashamed of. George enjoyed dancing very much. As he grew up, he took every opportunity he could to learn and practice the elaborate dances of the time. People complimented him on his skill and grace on the dance floor and were eager to dance with him. They knew he would be an excellent partner. George was widely respected for his accomplishments, this one in particular, and he was proud of it. Other young men about his age spent their time differently, gambling away their parents' money, getting into fights with each other. Not things to be proud of. Now, we've got a few questions about today. The first, when he became a soldier, George lost many more battles than he won. Does that make him a loser? Sometimes we set ourselves goals that we can't accomplish at first, even when we make our best efforts. Is it courteous and respectful to call someone a loser when they don't succeed? Is it fair? What should we say instead? Next question. George couldn't go to school in England as his brother Lawrence had. He never learned to read or speak in French, Latin, or Greek. When he got older, some people were disrespectful and made fun of him for his lack of education. Is it courteous and respectful to talk about other people's shortcomings? If we can't say something positive about someone, should we say anything about them at all? All right. Next, George would take his time to think things over carefully before making a decision and taking action. He would often ask people he trusted what they thought. Behind his back, a few people said that George just wasn't very bright and couldn't make up his own mind. He needed other people to do the thinking for him. Were they being fair to George? Or were they spreading rumors to hurt him? And finally, George enjoyed dancing and was proud of his skill and grace as a dancer. His friends and neighbors respected and admired him for this. Are we treating ourselves with respect when we do something we're proud of, even when it's just for fun? Are we treating ourselves disrespectfully if we do something that we're ashamed of? Well, I'd like you to think those over, talk them over at home, and pick your favorite of these questions, the one you're most interested in, and come up with an answer to it. And go ahead, send that in to me. We'll also be talking about these in our lessons during the coming week. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, we will move on next week. We'll continue our talk about courtesy, and what we'll talk about is the ways George applied courtesy on his first expedition to the Ohio country. And I look forward again to getting together then.